And the second page to that.
Yeah.
And it's on the first page, nobody trustee. Oh, this one is certificate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How do I turn that on?
No, you don't have to turn it, it should already be on.
That doesn't have a real lights, let's see.
But then, it was shown.
Hang on. We have to type in a code on the other computer.
Yes, you would have to.
Okay, well, somebody, yeah, will you help me?
Yeah.
Go on there, type in that meeting password that is.
Good morning.
Say you're removing life in here by bringing you.
What's the password, Benji?
You get a good job.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, further in there, you got it really. I'm just looking for that word. The password is not clear. The meetings. I know, but I'm looking for the agenda in this tab.
I've got it pulled up on my computer.
It's the one for the special meeting.
That's a special piece about.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so. Please remain here. It should be mine. It's recording, but. Make that bigger.
Now, down in your left hand corner.
You, Dr. Young, good, how are you?
Morning.
Morning. Okay, there we go.
I sure have been sanding a lot.
Me too.
Little more than normal. How do I do audio?
Brent usually sands for me.
What's that?
Brent used to sand for me.
Oh, really? Oh, now he's got a different job. I feel your pain. I have also been sanding a lot. Yeah. Go to the other side.
No, they got the key.
Oh, I couldn't find the key, Kev.
They didn't have a key in the morning.
Type that one in,
What am I typing in?
the code that you had for the special meeting.
The Zoom meeting ID? Is that what I'm?
Yeah, Zoom meeting ID at the top, that's not the special meeting, sorry, the work session.
The work session, okay.
There we go, you got it.
And I'm putting that in for the password, Ariel?
Password. Just doing anything.
And what's our email?
I got that. You type in email? Thanks.
Yeah, if you want to, you're gonna have to send me.
There you go.
There we go.
Did we get a link today? Yes. I have one copy of it, I just gotta find it.
Is it the same as normal as like for the other ones? Or-
No, it's one for the special hearing.
So I didn't agenda, are we gonna do the finance?
The, I believe from 9 to 11 is finance.
So it's-
There's no agenda for that.
Sorry.
And then at 11 is plus the meeting.
We had to do this.
This is the work session, you don't have to worry.
That's gonna be.
Well, here's the special, yeah, this special meeting. We'll add, we'll consider, we will add. Okay, I think we're good. Are you logged in there? No?
Yeah, we just need the host.
Oh, cool.
I'm done. I was.
And anybody accept that? You guys, I don't want to accept everybody.
Just like abroad. Yeah, we did. It was just one more thing we built, see?
Got it. Oh, really? Where's that?
And the 36 board, it was just nice.
100%.
Sitting there, and going nurse. He has always been ready to do like the next project and I.
Do you know which audio we usually use, Adam?
No idea.
Just when it comes in, accept all?
Ariel, we're nothing without you.
Okay, I know that,
No,
Surgery.
he broke his wrist and his leg.
Yeah. Doing what?
I don't know.
Broke his,
Leg for.
leg,
What was that?
drumming.
Maybe. Right. Oh, skiing. Dang.
Turned around and broke his wrist. So, yeah, this whole side of him is. That's what.
Hey, Benji?
Yeah.
Is Ariel still on the,
yeah.
can you ask her if on the
The
Big Mac, do we use the computer audio or do we use speakers?
He's asking, he should come back and
Okay.
do it again. I said, but-
And I'm just gonna do that.
Yeah. Don't even ask me, I mean. I wouldn't have back.
Well, yeah, I broke it. Couple of years ago, and you can feel the arthritis. Just from a break.
Wow.
They couldn't put a cast on it because it was too bad. So I had to wear a sling for.
For a minute.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, anyway, I'm feeling out
And
there,
then
but
switch over to
you
the
can
other.
tell the weather's just.
Oh.
That's all, that'd be perfect. Thanks so much. All right, enjoy, say hi.
Thanks, Ariel.
Yeah, now we're on Zoom for the work, not the work session, not the special meeting.
Yeah, it's not working here.
Try again. Try,
Thank you for speaking. Is it 385?
what's the number?
It's, for the,
The work session.
that's the special meeting one. 878
878
0377
0377
3385.
3385.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, make sure you just join the meeting now.
Should I try to connect?
No.
No, we don't see you, Dennis. Or anyone.
Be on Zoom yet, or is this not?
No, well, we're not, though, because we haven't started, but if you.
Get it all done.
Know why.
I don't understand. They are doing. It's doing. They want to let us start. We were.
So restart it one more time. Restart your
Yeah.
program now.
Yeah. They get
Close it, reopen it, and say, join the meeting.
We need to get online, we need to get the online, get transitioned over, because it's just.
I can, I'm not
I
as
spent
good
hours
means,
doing
but.
on payroll yesterday, and I did call help, was on, and it was
But
like,
we should-
and it's all this different stuff, I have never figured it out.
Like he has the link.
It was unplayed, but it wasn't just like.
Are you?
Well, I had to update.
See, we
update
did it
it,
in
they
Friday.
like,
And it was an update, it's like, well, why isn't it? Right,
Maybe
have you tried just like copying and pasting the link?
Right, well, we bought the old 62 and she literally drove it to the post office every day.
Right.
I mean, but then I sold the car on, let's see, by the time we get home, leave the collector. And you love her on it.
Ashes sat in that car.
Uh-huh,
Even though we got it. But
yeah, yeah.
oh, good.
Yeah, but, yeah, so she's gone now, but she's going to the big home.
My computer too.
Yeah. Alrighty, and I was happy with that sale.
So we're asking because board meeting is first time regular.
The first part is a work session with you two and the finance.
Did everybody get these 3 sheets?
Yes.
We're here.
I would ask Benji.
We'll wait until we're introduced.
I'm gonna give you guys, these 3 sheets too.
Cause I have to stand up. Let's see, you got 878-033, oh, sorry. I'm gonna start over. 878-0377-3385.
Okay. Let's
I
start.
agree. Yep.
Technology, it makes things so simpler.
Yes. I don't know why we have problems with this every time. It should be the same thing every time, because every time it's the same thing.
Go back to the spokesman.
Yep.
Just let me word through this here, it's trying right now.
Okay, thank you.
This is from Lane, so.
I am waiting. Okay, hold on, let me, I got you, I got you, do this. Why is my mouse not working?
I think I made enough for everybody.
Oh, so that's over here, and this. You got us? Yeah.
Everybody got one. You guys share.
Okay, you're muted right now, so
Okay, we got
can you
that.
unmute?
So we're just gonna start this as a work session. We don't have to do any technicalities for work sessions, special meeting, we will.
Dennis?
It's April 25th. And work sessions in motion, or in motion. And we're gonna discuss financial matters today. That's our agenda only, pretty much. We're gonna go through and try to do a analysis of what's needed to be done, and everything that's been done, and try to, this is our first, so hopefully we can get through some stuff, and then we'll have to continue to do this, because until we get our everything up to par, we've realized it's not easy to make decisions as a board, because we don't have up-to-date information. So I know that all of our financial people are working really hard to pull that together, but, and Elaine very generously has offered her time, energy, work, and I wanted to say thank you very much for that again. She wrote out this status, basically this what's going on, and I'd like to just maybe start going through them and discussing with our finance people where we're at as far as each item on this thing, and make sure that we're all on the same page with that.
Mayor,
Yes,
can I sit up?
yes, of course, you both can sit up here, please.
I'll sit up there.
Yeah, there's actually another chair here too. I'll slide. Can we all three slide over? and just hold it up?
I don't know, anything.
No, I'm sorry, Kim, just stand up and start, that's change.
Where's the music?
Sorry?
Where's the music?
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm Virginia West,
Yeah,
I'm just the
Elaine.
part-time person here for just a short period
Yeah.
to help Kim and
Elaine, do you want to
Thank you,
come
thank
here?
and get things going.
Appreciate it.
So I don't have all the
You wanna sit
answers.
at the table?
Whatever you guys, if you want me to, I will.
It's up to you. I mean, I think you're kind of, you're
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I read through her thing and it's very good and a lot of it is extremely accurate.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
So I got it.
Oh, very. Is it on the grant?
So we're gonna go into about 10:45. Take a break and then come back for our special meeting at 11. So let's see what we've done it by then. Hey, Jessica, do you not hear us? Say it one more time. Yeah, I can hear you.
He needs to, Dennis needs to unmute if he
You
has
need to
not.
unmute and want to talk. Yeah, you. Can you hear us, Dennis?
Concerned about you hearing me.
We can't hear you because you're muted, and I see your little button, the little red button on it.
Oh, yeah, it's not working.
Shoot.
We can hear you on your.
I know we can hear on the phone, but.
You have to close that one perhaps and do it again.
You should just, there should just, you see your little microphone symbol, Dennis?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You see your little microphone symbol? Does it have a red slash through it?
Yeah,
What happens when you click it?
nothing.
Is there an unmute button?
As well as on the, video as well, but I can see you guys. I don't know if people see you.
No, it's just like.
He has to join audio
Yeah, you might have to hit a join
in the
audio
bottom left.
button. I wonder if I can just unmute you. I think,
That's in the bottom left.
So how do you guys wanna, do you think the best way to go through this is just start at the top and just work our way through and start to?
Well, Virginia, if I may.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear him.
Virginia said that a lot of these make sense that you went through. I would suggest going one at a time. Some of them seem a little silly, but whatever, that it doesn't really affect our.
We can talk about it as we go.
But anyway, but I would like to hear from Virginia.
So let me just say one thing, when I met with Elaine, we broke
yeah.
things down into sort of two categories, or actually three categories. One was, technicals, being the numbers. One is fundamentals, being that, like Social Security Administration would be a fundamental. And, both of them have to be done, obviously, we have to have our numbers right, and we have to have all this stuff filed properly. The third one is philosophical, and that has to do with this overriding thing that our books have been in the past completely messed up. I mean, Warren's been pointing this out everybody's been pointing it out, we all knew that. And so now it's like crunch time, like we need to get back into order, and we have to figure out, how to move forward, because we have a budget draft due in June, right? June 15th, is that correct?
Well, the town is different than the county, so I don't know exactly how the town deadlines compare to the county.
Okay.
Because our budget was already.
Last year it was October 15th.
For the
You know.
draft. Okay.
No.
What Warren's saying, June 15th?
It's either June or July. Don't hold me to the thing. It's on the Dolan website. You can go check this out.
So, yeah, we
For-
need,
Yeah,
It's
because
the whole
it's gonna be
thing.
different than the county, because the county budget is due, well, this year we got an extension because of the property tax issue. But it was due like January 31st for the 24 budget, yeah, and any budget amendments, had until like the end of January also, normally.
okay.
I don't think that was extended.
So we're talking a draft budget for 2025.
Benji, it's a little later for the 25 budget, but it's the audit of the
That's right.
24 or 23 that have
And
to
I
be in progress.
Has been in contact with Lenny, who did the previous audit, and he signaled that he was on board.
And you might want to decide whether.
Yeah, I'm not
you
sure the
want
board
him to
wants to
do
use
that.
Lenny.
You can.
I'm not sure the board's
Has
gonna
to
have a
go out
lot
to
of
bid.
options from what.
And we can kind of Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
all right, let's start.
Yeah,
That's
let's
about
go.
it,
Yeah.
Some of these issues I cannot
because
address.
it's more than 5,000.
I can only address financial.
Professional services, so technically you could probably use them, but considering that he lied on 2 lines in his audit, I think you should be looking for a new audit.
So very soon.
Well, yeah, you have to be more specific on
Yeah,
that.
can we go on there?
Let's start, right,
Go right do you want.
yes, Ally.
I think Virginia was expecting to be able to give some version of a
Yeah.
updated report before we go line by line.
That'd be great.
Or is that what you want? I don't care, but I can only address
Yeah, but can
what
you,
I found doing the financials. And,
could you
let's
give
start
an
with
intro
Virginia.
5 minutes or less?
I can do it in, I can try 5 minutes or less. Do you listen to me at the county? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Virginia, no, we can take
If
it.
you want, how about if I start with an overview
Yes.
of my
That's
observations?
great. Okay,
I
please.
cannot address anything in the past other than when I showed up and I was looking at the records, and I only look at the records, it has nothing personal, okay? So we'll just put that out there. I only look at numbers. I know nothing else. I don't know anybody. So
Great,
it's all
thank you. That's
just
good.
numbers.
I like that.
Well, I know you now, but I only know the numbers. That's
Right.
all I look at.
Great.
Okay, so, the very first thing you have to do, there was issues, okay? And we probably know what some of those are. My first observation is things seem to be moving along. This is every transaction that occurred last year, just to let you know, and I looked at that. Every transaction that was reported, not occurred, recorded, 2 different things. So I'm looking at that saying, things seem to be moving along until maybe around September. And then they fell off a cliff. And I mean, big cliff, and that's what I said before. Very few entries were being made, and, so basically, yeah, no entries were being made, although some transactions were occurring. The first thing you have to do is you have to look at cash. Everything on your financial records goes through cash, ultimately. Very few things don't, but those are, like depreciation.
So the cliff we fell off of in September was that that entry stopped being reported.
Not all entries,
Okay,
but very few entries, and a lot of them were not accurate.
okay,
And.
which is even more of a problem. You're right.
Right, so there was, yeah, and so what we did, and so, we pulled the bank statements. They had not been reconciled, so your cash checking account had not been balanced. And, but of course, one of our issues was finding the records, having no access to those records. So we had to go through a process to do that, and, takes time and effort, And so we finally got the records and we reconciled the cash.
Nice.
What we found is that there was withdrawals, for generally EFT withdrawals, maybe for, they seem to be like for your utility bill, SLV utilities, but they were never recorded as an expense in your records. There were deposits made. Generally, these again were more like EFT type deposits received from the state for your tax. Some were received from the county treasurer for specific ownership tax. But they were just a deposit on the bank statement with really very, very little identification as to what the deposit was for. It said state of Colorado.
Okay.
That's all it said. So how do you know it's for your cigarette tax? How do you know it's for your property tax, sales tax? So what we did in order to get a reasonable, audit's gonna look at materiality, what's material, is it? So what we tried to do is get it reasonable. We recorded it as uncategorized income. You got the income, but at this point, if we put it all in one bucket, at some point, if we can identify that belongs to sales tax, we can move it to sales tax. But at least we got the revenue on your books.
I'd like to make one little point here. So some of that income is, for instance, the water sewer. It's just gone in. I haven't tried to tease out, I haven't had time to try and, figure out, okay, how much is water sewer? I mean, the payments are applied in a different system. It's completely separate. We have QuickBooks for the general accounting, we have UBMax for the water sewer, so the payments are being applied within that system, and that's running down the road, but in terms of the deposits, I had to get checks, there were checks on my desk from way back. So there's those checks, there's other.
And yeah, and the
Yeah.
checks are gonna, that's another issue with the checks. So what we did is we started with the balance sheet, because basically that's your snapshot. And everything that affects the balance sheet is gonna run through your income and expense, and eventually income expense closes to zero, and you start fresh.
That's
So,
what we're hoping.
so you really want your balance sheet to be properly stated, and once you get that stated, the way it flows is your income and expense will also be I'm gonna say reasonably stated, so that's what we did, and that took us I could only be here on Thursdays for a couple hours, and it did take us a couple, and there was a lot of things, like credit card charges. We seen the charge go through the bank, but we didn't have a statement to say, what is that charge for?
So we went through the process of getting access to that, so I have full access now, but have not. had
But here
time.
again, she didn't have access to get online and say, what was that credit card charge for? There was one in, and don't quote me on this, and we can look it up, but one like in November when we did the reconciliation, it was a $6,000 credit card charge. I don't know what it was, there was two, one was 6,000, one was 4,000, one was like November, January, or December, January, somewhere in that area, there was two charges that went through, because those are like EFT right out of your account. They took the money right out of your account, and didn't get recorded properly, and and so here again, we had to say, it's an expense, but we don't know really for.
Okay.
And so there's,
But now we'll find out.
well, eventually, if how much time you wanna spend and try to dig through and find those statements, it can be done. I'm sorry.
To clarify for all the new people hearing about this, of all of these EFTs, which are electronic fund transfers, is it 90% or 95% or 50% that those ultimately are a direct deposit to an entity versus kind of like an unknown?
Yeah, they
cash withdrawal?
generally go to, you'll see that they go to like UMB
Okay,
Bank or
so to
something, so they're not
clarify,
going
these
to,
aren't like,
like.
where did this money go? Well, it's kind of like, where did this money go, but there is.
Well, there's a charge, I mean, you'll find on the charge account, what it will be, but at this point, I don't know what that is.
What it's for.
Yeah,
But
what
he's
it's
not
for, yeah.
saying thousands of dollars have disappeared, it's just
Right.
how to track it.
Right, it's not like someone's stealing it, they're
Prob-
like.
No,
Probably
no,
not.
I'm just saying that
There's
there is
bad
an
records
expense,
keeping.
Problem.
it's on the credit card, one of them, but we just don't have the card to say, here's the receipt. It was authorized and you spent it for a tool or something, a paper supplies, I don't know. That was the only thing but there was only those two that we found. Otherwise, it looked like the credit card statements were being reported every month to the board or whoever reviews that.
Okay.
So
Up until September, right?
up until about September, it looked, the credit card statements were in the board packet, it looked like.
Yeah.
And so you should have easily been able to say, oh yeah, we agree that charge is correct. It's just that when it came to those last couple months, there was a 4,000 and a 6,000, not exact, but there was those two charges that we couldn't quite find in the system, that the money had come out of the bank to UMB.
So now that we do have access, it'd be nice to know what those two charges.
Right, and that would be something you'd want to,
Specific.
yeah, because then the next month it was like $300 or something like that. So it was just two things.
Those don't sound familiar.
Like,
You guys-
one of them was, I found the, there was one, like, it must have been October, and the statement was sitting on the desk there at one point. And remember, it was, yeah, and it was some kind of, I know, like a tool or something with, and it might have been on the water sewer credit card, not necessarily the town, because I think there was more than one account on your
Yeah,
credit
yeah,
card. So anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
Can I interject here again and say, like, the filing system does not exist. I mean, it did not exist. It's like, there's piles of stacks of folders, random, here, there, everywhere. That's been the system, that was just the situation. Of course, I've been trying to do my little nut gathering and, you know, storing them, you know, what I can, but, you know, there's still drawers of stuff that just needs to be de-gunked.
Yeah, she opened a drawer and it was just full of papers about this deed. I mean, just stacked, no folder, no, just so, you know.
Just a bunch of random.
Yeah, and being an accountant, I'm, you know, and I'm sure she is too, organization is, of course, the very first thing. So what we did is after we got this reconciled, you know, when you look at your, income statement, profit and loss, you will see that there is gonna be a little revenue, a little expense, it says uncategorized. We don't really know what it is, but at least we got it on the books.
And that's for 23.
For 23, because here's what you gotta, you know, we gotta get 23 year in correct. But the very first thing is I had to back up, because when you have an audit, whether you like it or not, if you accept them, that audit passes you, you have to restate your books to what the audit entry suggest, or, they make audit entries. And you have to restate your books to the audit. Does that make sense? So if the audit says, hey, you should have made this entry and your balance should have been this, you have to go to your books, so you have to make that entry to get, so that you're starting in 22 or at 1/1/23, exactly where the audit was. Like I said, whether you like it or not, if you accepted it and said, hey, I'll okay that, and he passed you. I did not find anything in the audit, but I do not know the history or the background, but the audit did balance to your books with the adjustments that he made. So what I did is I had to go back to 22 and I adjusted your books to his audit, okay? And then that way there, your roll forward, we'll start with what he said. He said, hey, I'm gonna pass you, this is your numbers, you're fine. However, as I went back and we get to 23, when you get to the end, and I'm sorry, I know I'm over my 5 minutes. But as we get to the end, this is the balance sheet that she presented to you guys like 2 weeks ago. This is reasonably stated down to two things that would probably need what I call cleanup. Because we can justify all of these numbers, we can we can prove them, except we have a few things in the cash account. And if you were to go to your reconciliation, you can see there was an older, and that was presented in that packet on the 8th or whatever. Well, I'm sorry, and I didn't know what to expect, but I'll just, you know.
You can just tell us, yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, I don't wanna get down into the weeds, because I could be here for 2 days, and he probably knows it if you listen to me. Okay, so there's certain things. One of them is, we look at when you go to your bank reconciliation, outstanding items, okay? We'll look at those out, and this is at the end of December. How is it that you can, and if you go in, there's gonna be deposits outstanding. You have a deposit outstanding from 12/30 of 21. If you haven't received that deposit in 2 years, you're probably not gonna receive the deposit. So that needs cleaned up. Somehow we're gonna have to make an entry to get rid of that. Does that make sense? And so there's a few of them. There's a few that, like there's a deposit that was made on 6/6 of 23. Well, it's December.
It's there or not.
And the thing is, some of it were, and the same thing with like some checks, you know, there was like, you know, you kind of get into the checks and you're like, okay, this check is a year old and it hasn't cashed your bank. So you go put a stop payment on it, void the check, research the check.
Talking about something, yes.
Or if you might have to, what technically is chief the check to the state, you know, the treasury, huh? Hey, check's outstanding, don't know, you know, what happens? And it's, in some situations is, the bill gets paid on the credit card and then somebody turns around and turns a receipt in and it get paid directly. So sometimes those checks are maybe double paid, I don't know. So, you know, it's that you have to research, got to do a little research to get rid of those checks. But they're there a year, they ain't gonna, I'm not saying it's not gonna happen, but I mean, some of that needs cleaned up. The other thing on the balance sheet that needed some attention is the payroll liability. Yes, that needed some attention. I cannot say whether that number is exactly correct without digging into it. Here's what happened on payroll liability. It's a liability. A liability is an in and an out, in and an out, in and an out. You record, I owe the money, I pay the money. So at some point in time, that should be zero, right? It should get to zero. Okay, you go back through the detail and you can kind of see where the entries start to not equal to zero. But some of that actually goes back to 2022. And it's very easy. I mean, I could easily, make copies and you could, you can watch the balance. You watch in and out, in and out, in. Oh, gee, wait a minute. Now my balance is growing, but not so I got something stuck in there that doesn't belong.
Did that show in the 2022 audit?
No, he did not. He may not have caught all of that stuff. I mean, he did make several entries, but it is, like I said, but eventually the liability should go in and out, in and out. And then at the end of the day, you say, hey, this 18,000 that you owe, you should be able to know exactly that's to John, Mary, and Jane for X amount of dollars. If there's something in there that gives us that, I'm not sure we would have, it's another, you kind of have to dig. Because I know that there's one, I can see exactly where in 22, there was a couple of entries that kind of got in there and never got out. And the other thing is, it's always XYZ, 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 and then you have a ZZZ entry that it's like, wait a minute, how come every single entry has the same description, kind of the same amount? You're always running $3,000-4,000, then boom, you get this weird, how did $27,000 get in there with a whole different description of the entry? So that's kind of what you're doing,
Right.
but it's a digging process, and here it was a little difficult, because you can't just go back to the paper and say, okay, here's what it was.
There was these, couple payments that we made that were big, that for, things having, this might have been 21 actually, when we did the water and sanitation, when we did the jetting and scoping and stuff like that, and I found those invoices. But I'm just wondering, because those are supposed to be and this might have nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but they're supposed to be reimbursable.
And through your DOLA grant, probably, yes. And there is money still out, because we had Ariel call your DOLA person,
Right,
and there is still money out there.
Still money out.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're probably not gonna let us get reimbursed until we fulfill the whole grant, and so we really need to, that's gonna be a big
Well,
thing.
and I can't speak to that,
Yeah.
or you're gonna have your receipts, because
Yeah,
those
I
grant
found a
people
couple,
are down to the penny.
right,
You bill to the penny on your grant, so they're on it, which is another thing on the DOLA grant. It did get paid, good news, but it got paid out of your water and sewer fund, which is or your capital fund, which is maybe where you wanted it, but the liability sits on your water and sewer fund, and you actually have 4 separate companies of books that you guys run. Town has a book, water and sewer has a set of books, the capital, I believe, has a set of books, and the burial fund has a set of books. Now, we were talking about merging the books. I'm not sure if you can actually merge the books. I don't think you can merge your funds. Some you may be able to take capital fund and put it with maybe your water sewer fund, but it depends on how the vote to assess and tax for that fund was done. Because I did ask about that, because we can't, as a county, cannot merge our funds or really even commingle.
Does anybody remember why we made that decision to merge those funds?
To merge which ones?
The water fund into the general fund? Do you remember?
So that we could use
Well,
It makes a lot of sense. You can't merge capital funds. You can't. I know exactly what she's saying, and you can merge some. A lot of towns have their water and sewer and police and everything in one fund. What you can't do is any of your really reserve accounts, like your capital account, the burial account, those
Right,
things
that's
cannot be in there. Right.
Yeah, anonymous, you can't commingle your funds per se, so.
Yeah, they're not yours, really.
Yeah.
Reserve funds are not really.
Yeah.
yours.
So I'm not sure whether you can run one set of books for the town and the water sewer together. I'm not sure, and I'm looking at you because you're the attorney and I was hoping you could, say, yeah, legally, because
We can.
the ballot and how that was structured, I guess, dictates whether that money is sort of a separate entity versus one set of books.
It's 0.5% of the 3.5.
That goes into the
It has to be directed to a capital fund. It
Right.
actually can happen, and I looked at other towns that have one fund.
Now, I'm not saying fund in dollars of money, I'm talking one set of books.
Yeah.
Because we actually have 4 set of books, 4 sets of balance sheets, income statements and all that. And to me, by closing your checking account on your water and sewer, it seemed like we were gonna try to take and make town and water and sewer one.
It is
Because I'm like, how do you, you want it one set of books?
It's one.
You
And I
know?
think you can have it on your balance sheet, have
As one.
everything. The town is like this.
Yeah,
In terms of the monies being segregated, because you can't use them and rely on. them,
they need to
that's-
be,
that's a
and that
different
might
issue.
be, but
But having one balance sheet that says, this is what you've got.
Yeah.
This is how it works. You can do that.
okay, and I, because we cannot, as a county, we have to keep each fund and have a balance sheet for each of our, like, general fund, road and bridge fund, public health fund. But, like you said, the town has different parameters and rules, and that's why I'm, like I said, I'm looking at Elaine to say, she's probably would definitely know all of that more than I'm gonna know.
I remember when we basically passed a ordinance, I think it was an ordinance that said something like, we were gonna not do the
You amended-
enterprise fund
you
because,
Amended the municipal code.
We
and not
amended
have
the
an
code.
enterprise fund.
Okay,
and I think
And that's
that's
when
when we,
If it were an enterprise fund, I would agree with you.
okay,
yeah,
yeah,
we
and-
decided we weren't gonna be an enterprise fund.
And as a philosophy,
Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
that we made the budget as low as we possibly could to try to take us down as far as we could possibly go, and I think we even oversimplified the budget. So that we could learn it,
Mhm.
understand it, start to adhere to it. And same with our staff, I mean, we went from 12 people to 5, so everything is as far down and simple as it could possibly be. And if in a year, if we wanna separate it out, once we start to understand it, once we start to adhere to it, we could get more complicated, but we needed to.
no, that makes sense.
Well,
I like it like that.
and I'm not disagreeing that I just wanna put that out that I don't know if we can have one set of books and still maintain, separate checking account or
Yeah.
bank, some kind of, and I'm.
Like I
fine with
said,
that. And it would be easier, because here's another, I don't wanna
Yeah.
interrupt, here's one other thing.
Yeah.
One of the issues that, and why some of these things is because there were so many back and forth. I owe you, so here, and you owe me, and it was back and forth, and then eventually you could see that, like I said, the ins and the outs, well, then they were getting mixed up, because I don't know if we were netting our back and forth or whatever, but eventually it's like, okay, so then that came to, at the very end, when we were getting down to this, we found 3 big checks, pretty big checks, there were the back and forth. So we had to kind of eliminate those, because they never got deposited, and now the account's closed. So, so we pretty much had to say, okay, that transaction didn't happen, because these checks are sitting here, they're void. So we had to void those checks off the system, and so that's sort of where.
What were they
They're-
for, sorry?
For the.
Reimbursements.
Water, like, right. to the-
Well,
the
one,
water.
there was 3 checks, but I thought one was like trying to reimburse for payroll.
Yeah.
It's
one
all
was
that
reimbursed
reimbursement,
for-
payroll.
I remember
it's
that.
back-
Yeah.
Back and forth.
And there was 3 of them for like 3,000 some odd dollars. I mean, we could go back, but here again, there was like 3 checks, but they were actually between.
That's when we were doing that like 20%
Yeah.
thing. and-
Yeah.
7.5%.
Okay. And so then the final thing, and I'll try to make it quick, the final thing is, the money did not get transferred, your sales tax money, your 4.5, that did not get transferred from, and it has still not been transferred,
A lot.
at this point. I think the last transfer, which I kind of, because I couldn't figure out the percentage, I thought it was like 5, but it's not 5, it's some weird,
You divide it by 7.
okay.
Total amount of sales tax that comes in, divided
Like
by
by
7, and that amount is what goes in.
Okay, so it was a weird percentage that I couldn't quite figure out.
Because it's 3.5 and 3%.
Yeah,
25.
there's- That's how I.
Okay, yeah.
I came up with that formula. It's
Yeah.
7 increments in the total sales tax received, and one of those increments. has
1/7
to go
goes
to
into
county.
account.
Okay, yeah, like I said, I wasn't quite getting like.
It's
the
really hard to do it.
percentage, but I just knew that the last payment, I believe, was in November for October receipts.
Well,
And-
yeah, I
Yeah, I
have all
think-
them.
Right, and I have a copy, but then that's where we found that you did make your DOLA payment, but see, that's what gets a little wonky, is because it came out of that money, which is
Instead
fine.
of out of the other.
But it's on a different, the liability sits on a different set of financial statements. And when I was looking, I'm saying, oh my gosh, you know, you guys didn't pay your loan because the loan balance didn't change from 22.
Oh,
That's what I started, we were like, okay, you make sure you paid your DOLA grant.
Are you talking about the 10,199?
Yes, but it
Okay,
came out of it did come out of the capital bank account, your capital.
okay,
But like I said, that's a
Okay.
separate set of financial statements. So what will
just
happen,
being carried on the.
well, we have to look, we haven't even looked at what the books look like.
So
in
does it
there.
get reimbursed to the capital fund then?
Yeah, well, that's up to you guys, whether, who's paying that
Well,
DOLA grant?
Ideally, once we get caught up and we get our grant, that grant has to be taken seriously. So, I mean, we have like,
This is different.
That's the loan from the original building of the
I
system.
gotta go see it over.
Okay, there was a loan, like a 10-year loan or 15-year loan, I don't know, that's in the audited, if you read your audited financial statements for
Okay, so it's a different-
22. That kind of, if you read those notes, it gives you a lot of information on what's going on,
But if we haven't had the,
money going in.
the 7th of the sales tax revenue going into the capital fund since
Right.
November,
Well, okay, but
that could
But you,
be,
it's still,
it's
it's
a
kind of
whole,
like
that's a whole
different.
nother thing.
Yeah.
Because the sales tax revenue comes into your, I'm gonna say town fund, and I believe the town fund is putting it into the capital fund. But
Correct.
the capital fund paid the bill, but the liability sits on your water sewer fund.
but has the money been going into the capital fund?
No,
Right, so that could be
But you can't
35,000.
it's
offset.
probably
It's-
going to be.
but you
on your
can't,
books,
but then what's gonna happen is basically your town fund is paying the DOLA loan and not technically your water sewer fund that should have been paying that DOLA loan.
Okay.
But then it gets confusing because if you're gonna match them all into one at some point in time.
Which is why
Yeah.
the idea was, you get it, and your books are gonna have different things where you could pull it out and say, this is how water and sewer is doing. But it's all one,
It'd be a
but you've
different
gotta
cost.
get it set up
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
and then you have to do it right.
yeah.
But if I thought we had 80,000, 85,000 bucks in the capital fund.
Right,
And what I'm saying, just as a note, is that if we haven't been transferring that for the last 6 months, that's another 35,000 bucks. So we might have
Your
115,
capital fund is not a problem, it's your general fund that might.
but
be a
not
problem,
putting the
because all
money in the
this money's
capital
having-
fund for the
the
last 6
capital
months.
fund only has $58,000, well, that would have been as of 2/29. $58,000, see, that's all your activity. So see, this is the last time a deposit was made,
Okay, so it's owed another
Yeah.
30 to 40,000 bucks.
From the general.
yeah,
And
At least,
like
yeah.
when we're talking at our last meeting, we have things coming up that are gonna get paid out of the
Out of there
capital.
too.
fund.
And it's
Yeah.
gotta be really balanced, because there was 54,000 in it, put into it. I don't know what the.
well, there's usually,
existing
it
balance-
looks like, cause I look at the cash here again, and I haven't looked at the books because we haven't got the book part of that. But here's all the activity, not a lot, basically, you're putting about $5,000 to $7,000, $7,000 a month in what was going in. And you can see, and then you can see exactly when it stopped on 11/6 was the last one, so that probably would have been maybe for October, or even maybe the month before, you know, I'm not
How
sure.
much- if you tell me how much it was, I'll tell you what.
It was, well, because I was trying, it was $7,485.26.
That's right.
Okay, and that's kind of what I
So
thought.
we're November, December, January, February, March.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys can look at this,
It's like pretty soon, April.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's gonna have to be looked at, because there was 54,000 put in as of August. And there was
But
a
then you took
pre-existing
10, you took
balance.
11,000
So you
out.
have to,
11,000 came out though, for that DOLA payment.
10,199.
Yeah, and 70 cents, yeah.
Okay, well, anyway,
So-
that's just.
So that's where we're at.
I know,
Okay,
we're
so,
concerned about that because it drops our general.
I'm dropped it, well, it will drop your general fund by about 7,000 a month for all those months. that are missing.
correct.
And that's one of those things that we have, Warren and I have recommended for a long time, that we change it, get a ballot issue and get that money back into the general fund. Be that as it may.
Yeah, so,
It's gonna deplete the general fund significantly.
yeah.
But if we start, but there are expenses that we could just automatically start using the capital funds for, like we have
Yeah,
some, so.
if they're a true capital expense, they should,
Yeah.
for water and sewer, they should be paid out of that account, that's the purpose.
Yeah, so, okay, so we did the same thing with water and sewer fund, we were able to get the bank statements finally, and we went and reconciled those through the time when you like closed your checking account. We made the entries for like the interest in your CDs, so here again, we tried to get your balance sheet, which would make your income statement, we tried to get that, but some of the issues is on that one, is like in your, like more accounts receivables and stuff, because kind of what would happen is, it seemed like that billing system over here, there would be like a report, and then then they would have to take this report and they go to your financial statement and say, I got a receivable because I billed John for, $10. And then when John pays us $10, it should came out after, like September, October. That didn't happen. And so we didn't, the money may be coming in, but we didn't really have the receivable. We may have billed, we didn't, and then some of it, what's recorded is as a batch.
That's what,
It's a batch.
That's
So it could be 10 people, 6
You don't know
people,
who it was.
it's a batch. So until we can figure out how to get back on the system to find something that says what batch 98
The
was.
deposits, and,
Yeah.
and UV Max tracks all of that, but
You gotta go find it and dig it out for every batch, and there was over 100, well, we were looking at the last couple entries that we were like, okay, the deposit according to the batch doesn't match the bank statement, so we're gonna have to just kind of leave that sitting there until we can figure out what batch 89, 90. I mean, there's like 10 batches, and it could be one person, 2 people, 6 people.
and that's for months. I mean,
Yeah.
It was
this
big.
problem,
Is
this
that
problem
partly
repeated
because-
itself over months.
Is that
And it's
partly
still-
because a lot of those checks, I mean, I remember when you came in, there was like just stuff everywhere.
The system fell apart.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott,
You tried.
he tried, but yeah, I mean, and when, it's like when you throw a bunch of papers up in the air, you're gonna spend a long time putting those back together to make it work.
So we've talked about like a forensic auditor sort of situation, is that something that type of person can help with this?
Well,
Or is-
forensic auditor, I mean, when you say that to me, it looks like fraud, you're looking for
Yeah.
fraud.
Okay,
Personally, I can't say that I see fraud,
okay,
huge fraud. It's because you can go to your checking account and really see that there wasn't a lot going on that way. But there was definitely like entries that were done correctly, and then we never got them kind of fixed. But then if you really wanted to dig down, it's just somebody that would have to go through, and you almost have to go through just every entry and say, this went in, did it get out? Did it go out? What happened? But that is gonna be extremely difficult, because where do you find the record for that? I mean, where do you find that piece of paper that says this is why they made this entry? And is it cost effective?
Hmm.
The only thing that I found that we questioned was somebody apparently got a computer. It looked like they were paying the loan back, and then the payment stopped.
It was Leslie.
And
It was
so
like a year ago.
$1,000, I don't even know how much she still owed, I'd have to look. But that's like, cause it was a receivable, and then it just sat there and sat there and sat there and sat there, and so then, I didn't know, to me, it just looked something to do with the computer.
Hmm.
They apparently bought it for their, somehow,
It's not that little computer.
and maybe it was a computer that you were supposed to be getting a receivable from a grant, and then you quit billing the grant. I don't really know. That was it, it's $700 maybe or something like that. That was the only thing to me. And then like I said, the credit card, it looks like you guys were getting your credit card statements and you should have been able to look at them, except for those last 2 or 3, which now you can, pull out October, November and say, yeah, I can see that those were for
Good.
something. So that's kind of where we're at.
So the question is, it was a good question about the forensic audit, and we have money put aside specifically for that. I mean, would it be more, what would be the best use of that money as opposed to a forensic audit?
Well, and I don't, like I said, this is totally up to you. You're gonna be paying a good sum of money to have your auditor come in here, cause you have to have
We
that
had
audit.
that,
So maybe just use it for that, because like I said, here's the other thing on a forensic audit. Unless you plan on prosecuting, which is a lot more, here again, you're going down that. You know what, I don't know, that's up to you guys, that's totally up to you, I just don't, like I said, I don't see anything in the, there wasn't tens of thousands of dollars coming out of your checking account that you can't identify.
Huh?
I have no idea.
Well,
we need you.
well, we can see every dollar that came out of the account.
But you don't know where it went.
Well, some, not, well, you can see where some of it went, I guess, or at least where it's recorded to going, I can't.
There's $15,000 that came into the general fund that should have been in a court fund. That nobody has any understanding of where that money, whether it came into the bank account, into the general fund or not.
By air, you're meaning, you mean like the state deposited
No,
money,
no,
or
No,
no?
so we had a lawsuit that was,
Oh.
it was a deposit basically.
Like a bond.
It was like a bond.
Did that come in 22 or 3?
Well, okay, if that's something
Come
you
in.
could specifically look to see, if you can find that on the bank statement, if you can see transactions related to that. There may be transactions in here, you could look by a vendor to see if there was like, okay, these payments should have come from a vendor or been paid to a vendor. So you can do a search in the records. Now, if the money came and was not deposited into your checking account, then that would take an actual like fraud auditor to come and find, you're not, because I don't know, how would you find if cash comes in?
I'm sure she paid with a check.
Yeah, I don't know.
Her name is Heather Triplett.
Oh, we did see some stuff on there about triplets.
So the
There
money
is
went
something
back to
there.
her.
Going out.
Money went back to her.
Both.
Okay, but, and so so
So we
you
don't
can,
know where
When it came in.
where did it go?
And it was
And that's why
last
we
year?
have a bank
Yeah,
account
sorry.
to establish for bonds.
What about the final part of your report, right, so far?
yeah, I think,
Okay.
yeah.
Everything they've been saying, for me, I will totally, wish to have the audit. The
Audit?
forensic, yeah, because
Forensic audit?
definitely, they saying over and over, all these things was really bad, and for me, as a neighbor and as a trustees, I would like to know who made the mistake. Even if we not persecute them, at least we can post it in the ego, because the people is really upset with us right now. Town trustees board, because they spend all the money and all the budgets, so that we clear who made a mistake.
But a lot of the spending happened because when Leslie came in,
There's
everybody
no
got,
record, there's no good record and everything is a mess.
no, she's
Like,
saying.
that's what she's saying, I mean,
saying
like,
that
they're trying to track everything, she cannot say there was no fraud, right?
Well, no, I can, and an audit, but here, let me tell
But
you,
that's.
a traditional
but-
audit,
but-
the
but-
audit.
But that's my point, if we cannot say no, we should do it, that's a good manner for
Well, I mean,
everyone,
That's also spending a good amount of money.
I understand it, but we're going to spend and good, and people
I'd
want
like
to be
to-
happy when you say, hey, this is what happens.
Yes.
I think the public made their voices clear about wanting to really scrutinize the town's finances, and the way you do that is with a forensic audit. I think right now it's premature. I think you can't pay somebody to do the basic little filing and finding a piece of paper, you've gotta have it there and hand it to them and then see what they come up with. I think one thing you might be able to do would be to combine a forensic audit with the mandatory yearly audit. And then you save money. And I think the DOLA would probably give you an extension if you said, we're not gonna just do this little audit of 23 because we really want to
Wanna
make
dig
sure
in.
it's right. So we
Correct.
want an extension on that, and we're gonna combine it with a forensic, more intrusive, more expansive
I
audit.
like that idea.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
I don't think we could afford a forensic audit in retrospect. I mean, I think that could be tens of thousands of dollars, but I
You're
like,
talking
yeah,
probably $250 an hour.
right, that's what I just looked up. It said
Yeah.
$300 to $500.
Oh, it could be, yeah, I guess, like I
So it
said,
could be
and
30
that's
to
if you could
50,000
even find
bucks.
somebody.
if
the
we're
area.
going back multiple years, but I like the idea of combining, which gives us, I think we're probably at 21K, 22K left allocated for the forensic audit plus 12, I think, for the regular.
We had 36 also.
So that would be a good investment.
And I think what maybe, there might be something, you know, a forensic audit, when you're looking for really true fraud and you're looking for the evidence to prove a case and really intense stuff, is very exacting, and I don't know if we need that level,
Sure.
but certainly whoever does this next audit, and I don't think it should be the
I
hard
don't think it should
person.
be.
They could be instructed to be looking for, you know, kind of a modified forensic.
At
Yeah.
some point, the board asked me to ask Lenny if he would do the audit.
Yeah, that was last meeting.
I don't remember, I wasn't here for
Which
that.
I did, and he said yes, so.
But,
Well,
and here's, I
We-
mean,
I-
I don't know what your, I'm sorry, I don't know what your situation was with him, but he did give you a clean audit. And he would have a baseline to give forward. But I don't know, I looked at the audit, I didn't see anything terrible with it.
But it is some terrible there.
Well, it reconcile, I mean, I was able to reconcile
But there
it.
is some there.
I don't wanna use Lenny, I mean, we got the
But-
impression he was
but-
doing.
but-
we could actually,
But
we could
no
go-
audit is gonna look for fraud, it's not the audit, and they'll tell you right, and it's right in the management letter. An audit is not there to find fraud, they do procedures to maybe identify that, but they don't look for fraud. And a specific CFE, certified fraud examiner, can do that per se, but yeah, $400 or $500, so I don't know. To me, I think if somebody just had a little time to dig, but the digging has to be, you gotta find some record, you know,
What-
where are you gonna find the receipt for
One
that?
thing that we hear as trustees is to voice the people in our meetings,
So what, sorry,
to voice
voice.
for the
Sure.
people in our
Yeah.
meetings, and that's what we hear.
Yeah.
And I really understand her, what she don't want to go with that one, I would like to do it. I think us as a board, and I was elected.
We can't make the decision now.
No, I know,
Well, and
but that,
discuss it and see who else you can find, because it's kind of getting late to find an auditor right now.
so my point
Yeah.
is that we should move to that one and figure out how we can
Okay,
do it.
so when we get into our special
Yeah.
meeting, we can make a motion to do that.
Okay, that's my point of view.
Okay.
Okay.
I also want Elaine to be a big part of this, because I feel like Elaine, I mean, you kind of have the best handle, maybe between the three of you guys are getting a handle on the books. And so I want to just make it clear that, like she said, it's maybe a little too early, and then she's saying it's a little too late. So how do we find like a happy medium between those two worlds where, I mean, Elaine and Warren are both kind of on some level speaking for the people, you know, because they're hearing, you know, from everybody, basically. So they're bringing a new perspective. So between these two, you know, I kind of would say they're somewhat representatives of the people. That are.
I believe that we're representatives of the people.
we're
And
representatives,
He's
but-
definitely doing his job right now,
Yeah.
and we've collectively been bringing this to the board
Yeah.
for
It's-
years.
Yeah, and it's time, this is the time, but what I'm trying to say is that they have a different perspective, a wider perspective on some level than we do sometimes. Because we're,
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Elaine has a really concrete perspective on the function of the town. But I also think that as much as I respect Elaine, I want to be clear with the authority and purpose of a finance committee, and I also want, like we had, Virginia sign some sort of agreement
Yeah,
that, because
an
she's
NDA.
now accessing our
Sure.
books, and I still want Elaine to do that also.
yeah, that's fine. We talked about that, yeah.
Could Elaine be part of a forensic audit? I mean, I don't know what
You
the,
can't do that, but I could certainly work with you guys about getting the 2024 budget and all, how we wanna set it all up and all that, cleaning up the old, it's like, most of these things here, Kim and I and Virginia and I, the three of us did most of that, in terms of where is it, what is it, let's get it filed, let's get it done. but there's a whole lot more to do. And you know, you wanna have it that like in, say, 3 months from now, when you come to a board meeting and you have a packet, it is accurate, it is up to date, you know how much money you have and you know what, and they're presenting what the bills are and you know where you're at.
Right.
Right now, you do not.
Right.
I mean, when I looked at the most recent information, you don't know where you're at. Things
It's
like,
getting closer. I think we're pretty close at year end, and then if the entries had been kind of going forward from January on, we're probably close. And there is a report, she was kind of working on it, the budget, there is a report in there. We can match this account that's on your balance sheet or on your profit and loss statement, matches
budget.
exactly where your budget,
Exactly.
so, and we can do that. Now, the thing is, in order to match it, kind of like you're wanting per se, I mean, you'd have to start from like zero, and you don't really want to do that, because your accounts are set up and they're reasonable for accounting accounts. So it may say sales tax here on your budget, but it may be sales tax down here, but we can still put in there, here's your budget amount, sales tax. It's just not gonna be in the same order that's in your packet, sorry.
the numbers need to correspond.
They will
When the
correspond.
budget last year was a nightmare, because you're like, how much did they spend for this? Oh, I don't know, it's over, it's here, here.
Yeah, but the budget wasn't in there correctly, that's for
So
sure.
it's gotta be,
Yes,
accounts have, you know, the one number to begin with, and they're all there, and you need to be able to really look at it and know what you.
yeah, we can map, I can easily map your budget, it just won't be exactly in the same order. The numbers will match, they'll match, here's what you're spending, here's what the budget said. It just, the budget here won't be exactly in the same order, because all of your revenue items generally come out, revenue comes first, expenses come.
And we set it up that way.
Right,
Budget is
because
set up pretty.
A 4,000 is always a revenue, a 6,000 is an expense.
So there's two different things going
Yeah,
on.
well,
One is,
anyway,
one is this audit, thinking about like the past and really going back and doing this forensic, yes, I think maybe it's worth it, but I mean, you have to think, like, is it worth spending, say it was 24,000, and then say we find a $700 piece of fraud, And
it may
that
not even be fraud, it could just be a mistake,
could be a mistake.
mistake.
So I'm just wondering if like going forward, are we spending the public's money properly by doing that? I do like the idea of, see, I just like, I wanna spend the money on something that, really nails it down, and maybe it's hiring somebody to come in and actually, I mean, unless, like really go back and pull each piece of paper and just get it so lined out. I know it's a pain in the butt, but I mean, I don't know if that would be better money spent better.
No, I don't think that the system is that broken down. I think we have gone through, and I think that's what's not being understood here. I think we have gone through the books and seen, yeah, it looks pretty good. There's that $18,000 payroll liability. It's like,
We just need
that
to,
doesn't make sense.
yeah, investigate that a
That's
little bit more.
not, yeah, and.
Yeah, it's not material as far as thousands of dollars.
And otherwise,
right.
we're getting there. It's just that things are not properly, as I mentioned with the water sewer funds, like ideally, you would look at UV Max and be able to reconcile those two systems, like, okay, here we got all these payments and they went on in at this time into the general
Yeah.
fund. It's just not like that. The system broke down. We are still putting it back together. And that might be problematic to really get the nitty gritties down. You might be at a certain point like, okay, it's about right. We know we got it here, we know we got it here. It's approximate, just for some of those kind of.
It's only a
Like water
couple
sewer.
accounts that just have one or two, a couple accounts that got a couple entries in there that just didn't quite go right. And then her trying to get the bill system to integrate with the accounting system.
So as far as that goes, like, I mean, it sounds like obviously everyone who's been working on that has put a lot of work in. Thank you, everybody. But, so do we need to hire somebody else to keep this organization process going? Or are we in a good place right now to keep that process going, to prepare for our audit?
Well, I don't know how many more hours you guys committed to have me, I mean, cause I could come help a few more hours to dig into these few accounts that I think need some cleanup.
And she has some hours still. I mean,
Yeah, I still, if you gave me the 20, I think I
Yeah.
spent maybe 4 last week and whatever today, you know, so, you know, we could, I mean, I guess, let me go to my 20 hours, I'm willing to do that, see what we can dig in on the certain area, because it's very easily identify, I mean, it's very easily to identify kind of where certain areas were not right. It's the issue would be, can we find documentation to figure out how to correct it? You know, that's sort of, and there is a few things from 22 that are kind of stuck out
So I
there.
guess we're still in,
Yeah.
in the exploratory phase at which it's hard to give a perfect answer here.
Yeah,
The people was doing the job before you guys, it's helping you guys to stretch everything.
I'm sorry.
the people before us have not helped any other than answer her phone so that she could get a code to get into the system.
And that's it, no help.
Zero.
No.
Lisa.
And we not be,
Well,
and we not raise you suspicious about that?
I don't know, I think she's done, I thought this,
Well,
I don't even know who
Well,
this
I'm
person
asking
is,
for
I
you,
don't know.
I'm asking for your personal opinion,
Oh.
but you know, as a counter, if somebody not helping you to straight the numbers, something weird there, right? Or not?
I guess I don't really know, because like some people leave,
Okay.
they're done.
Unfortunately, what
I mean, I don't know.
What I think
That-
really happened in the past, and wasn't necessarily fraud, but I think we just paid people too much that were incompetent, and now.
Well, that's the other point for me, because we've been paying them much to these people in the community, and they go to God all the jobs in the community and go to do the same thing,
Right.
so, and us, as a trustees, we should, be aware of that too.
Yeah.
So, before coming trustees, I was a meeting in town with neighbors. Every single neighbor in the town, he requested the audit. So I let you,
An audit,
that's, yeah,
the forensic.
the
audit.
forensic
Yeah.
audit. So
So,
that's why I still insisted, because people want it.
right, I
If
understand
we
that.
spend the money,
And,
it would
and
be
one
good.
thing that, you know, those same people could have came to this work session, you could
I'm
invite.
here,
them.
I'm here, so
I know you're here, but I'm saying now
I
we're
use,
getting to a point where we're starting to
Sure.
get more of a handle on it.
sure,
Part of it was that it was just a mystery in general. It was just a complete mess.
So I think the way to see this is we have been doing this. You know, exactly what people think they're asking for, that's what we've been
Yeah.
doing.
What, I mean.
I mean,
they wanna- they wanna find fraud.
we spent a year listening to people express a lack of trust in our bookkeeping and
Mhm.
treasurer and
Sure.
staff.
Yeah, and that, yep.
And, you know, we spent a year listening to accusations and I thought it was pretty ugly. And, I think that's part of the reason that staff has gone and is not helping now.
I agree.
But we had our 2024 budget passed. With a very clear statement that we allocated the money for the forensic audit.
Right, I know,
So the people approved that in a public hearing.
okay.
And I'm not suggesting now that we do a, you know, $500 an hour forensic audit. I'm suggesting we look into having, I think we probably have $33,000 available for audit and forensic audit now. So I think last time we skimped on our auditor and went with Lenny because it was cheap and easy. And I
I
think
don't
that
think he was cheap though, he wasn't cheap.
$12,000.
Yeah, but is that cheap?
Well, it depends on what you wanna compare it to, because
Sure.
the county audit's a lot more.
I think we were paying Wall Smith more.
It was about this,
15.
the second,
Yeah, I thought
the
it,
last year,
so I would say we went with, you know, an affordable option.
Okay.
But I think if we have $33,000 available to really shop for a really great auditor. And maybe we can use the language of like forensic examination. I don't know how far you think they need to go back. I think if we try to go back to 21, it's gonna be out of our price range. I think they can examine, which I think is what she does, but you know, it can be somebody else who can also do the entire audit. But yeah, I think we should spend the money on it because we allocated the money for it. That's what the people.
So, yeah, do you agree, Elaine? Or-
I do agree. I think it's just there's just so many weird things and they may not be great. It's not like, oh, there's 100,000 we can't find, but it's a mess. And and I think people need the reassurance. The public needs the reassurance that the town is handling it responsibly, addressing the issues and so on. In response to
Yeah.
somebody, I'm willing to continue working very intensely for like 30 days with you two. And let's just get everything caught up that we can, get it filed, get it organized. If there's a question that has no answer, let's know what that is. And otherwise, answer as many questions as we have. Have the 2024 book set up right. The postings for 2024, and Kim, you're trying so hard, I know. A lot of them are a problem. Transferring the money from water and sewer is not income. There's a bunch of things that have to be
Okay.
really, we need to make sure 24 is really going. And
So-
it's based on 23, obviously. But I'm willing to spend a fair amount of time and really work on finishing all these things, making sure everything is filed that should have been, and all of that. And I think in 30 days, we would have a very good idea of where we're at and what the next step should be.
And whether or not an audit, a forensic audit, in fact, is seeming reasonable. I mean, it may be that just looking into this, you will, understand that.
A lot
They're
of
saying
things
more
are
of
not
a
answered.
philosophical thing. So,
But you still have the issue of the public and what, they need some reassurance.
Yeah, I don't think any money was
philosophical.
stolen at all.
Yeah.
I don't think any money was stolen.
Yeah.
I think that we need to do
Get
it.
a good robust
So we
audit
can
that you.
look people in the eyes and
Yes,
say.
exactly.
Money-
A robust audit, yeah.
so would you feel, what's your opinion? I wanna hear.
First of all, I would like to apologize to Kim for my last expression about the numbers,
Thank you.
okay?
Accept.
Okay? I was rude and I apologize for that. I was trying to address the numbers, okay? The town has not filed a supplemental budget in 3 years, at least, maybe 4. All right? Over $300,000 was spent. Multi-year contracts were engaged in. All right? The auditors never found any of that. All right? So as far as I'm concerned, the auditors are getting garbage in and garbage out. This particular auditor said he spoke to the town's attorney and said there were no financial issues that would affect the audit. Well, either the lawyer lied or the accountant lied. Okay, and now you go down to the next line that I complained about the audit, which I stumbled upon the other night, just going through it again, where he said the town is in compliance with all its financial reporting requirements. An out and out misstatement. Okay, so you've got that. Over $100,000 was taken from water and sewer and put into the general fund to cover all these high salaries that were being paid. Against the town's own municipal code. It was illegal for that money to be transferred out. Now, no money may be missing, the checkbooks may all be balancing, that may all be right. But nobody has a freaking clue about that money going back and forth. If $100,000 or $200,000 moved, and you said there were 3 checks that you found that were never deposited. My gripe with the last financial thing I saw was utilities went from $3,400 at the end of August for $42,000 at the end of the year. That is not reasonable. It's not right. Now, I understand you're categorizing stuff blankly, not knowing what it is. So if all that got put in the utilities, what the heck is it? Along with the fact that people are being paid that, as far as I can tell, are not on the payroll. So
Dennis, are you still there?
it's
Sorry.
it's not knowing what you don't know. It's not that you,
Oh, I'm,
okay?
we're on the same page there, yeah.
That's it. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I, as Adam knows, I have been ugly. I have been very ugly.
And from, I would say moving forward, as much as we appreciate your input, that we should set the standard where nobody's yelling at our staff.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So I think it's just the approach sometimes. It's like the information is good and very helpful.
It's 2 years and nothing has been done as far as I'm concerned.
This has been done, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, but, so it's, nothing's been done, but we are.
Nothing has been corrected. Let me leave it at that.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, okay, so Dennis wants to say something.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, I think I've heard pretty much everything everyone has said. It's been difficult. But I heard Elaine's, say something about, volunteering that 30 hours to give us.
30 days.
I'm sorry. And I would support that 100%. I don't, we've been talking about this a lot longer than I've been around, and I don't know if this is just a serious case of mismanagement. I know we saw some of that in our finance meetings where line items were created and almost duplicated in a lot of cases. Or if we need more oversight and I mean, board involvement, more oversight in how our fees are processed through our system, both income and outgoing. And, so I again go back and I'll support the idea of that 30-day investment with Elaine coming in and helping out.
Great. So we can't make the decision in this meeting, but in the special meeting, it's on the agenda to, so we will, and we're gonna switch over. In 15 minutes, we're gonna take a break for 15.
Yeah, no, not that it matters so much right now, but everything on my end seems to be okay. It looks like I'm just not able to hook up to the Zoom.
Well, what we'll do is we're gonna reset it and you're gonna have a second code and we'll try it again.
Yeah. I
For the
have
special
that
meeting.
as well.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Dan.
So I was kind of working on the Zoom in the beginning, but I heard y'all talking about on June 15th, we need to have,
No, I think I was mistaken.
Okay.
July, it's somewhere in there, but we can look on the DOLA website. I'd like to have a calendar
yes,
for us, I mean, no questions, yeah, on the wall.
has all the big
So
stuff.
you can have one specifically for finances and one specifically for clerk, you know.
And meetings.
Meetings,
yeah.
Ideally, I mean, I think what you do is you have 2 months out, we have a yearly one on the table. And then 2 months out and you just rotate them, you basically like pull one off, put that one there, move this one over, change the month, and so it's a staggering system. But you think we need to start looking at maybe on
Like the calendar.
a good calendar so that we have deadlines?
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about how there's Google calendars associated with the two different, well, the books and the treasurer accounts and
Google Calendar's fine, except I think, again, it's like, we all kind of still like paper, even though we're moving, everybody's moving towards more of a, everybody's moving more towards like the internet-based stuff, but in my opinion, when you see it on the board, there's something about it, it's why people use whiteboards still, but whiteboard calendars,
whiteboard.
with the. and then
That would probably be Ariel. and you
Yeah, we
would
can
with
work that out later.
That's what I was.
But yes,
I have the deadlines if you want them.
okay,
June 30th is the deadline for the auditor to submit an audit report to a local government.
wow,
And then there's deadlines, July 31st is a deadline to submit it to DOLA, or the Office of the State Auditor.
July.
August 25th The assessor certifies
July
the
25th.
August 25th.
August.
Assessors certify to a taxing entity and the local government, the new assessed and actual value, so that you know what you're gonna be budgeting. October 15th and November 1st, in that time, no, I'm sorry, October 15th, the budget officer, which is normally the treasurer, submits a proposed budget to the town. November 1st is a deadline for submitting applications to the division for an increased tax levy. December 10th, the assessor's changes in assessed valuation are made. And December 15th is deadline for certification of the mill levy. And then December 31st normally is when the budget has to be submitted to the state. This year it was extended to
So
the
we
31st of January.
We need an auditor to give us before June.
You'll have to get an extension.
You
Okay,
get
so we
Till
can get it.
September 30th,
Okay,
but you'll have to, I don't know exactly when that extension has to be filed,
okay.
but you'll have to have like an auditor, in place, and then they'll have to file an extension.
Okay.
And they're pretty routinely granted.
So,
The
Yeah.
auditor will, so we need to get an auditor ASAP.
Pretty much, yeah, because a lot of them are probably busy and, like, I'm just saying, it is, I mean, the county, we do like a 3-year contract, but even for us, it's not easy to go out and find somebody, just like your experience, the county had kind of the same thing, where they kind of had somebody that, let's go shop around, that person.
Well, we
and they,
We have 15 minutes or 12 minutes left. You wanna talk a little bit about your
list or, yeah.
your list and, or
Yeah,
what do you think?
well, I think the list is pretty self-explanatory. It describes, and if
Very
I
good
made
list.
corrections, if I need corrections.
No,
to
I thought it was great.
Basically, it is the things that were discovered that were really critical in terms of not being filed, governmental filings, payments of taxes and that kind of thing.
Is that the kind of stuff that you'd be willing to help with?
I'm very willing to help with this.
And she
A
has
lot of these are
yeah.
in process and
Mhm.
have been done, and we just have to kind of monitor it and clean it up and make sure
The
everything's.
nice thing is, a lot of this stuff is repetitive yearly, so we can,
A lot of this is repetitive, and Kim, I think, is very good when if there's a schedule, she'll follow it, and she'll do it, and, but she has to know what that
I
is.
just wanna make sure that we're not just doing it this year, that we will like
There
continue
have
to
to be
have like.
systems, there have to be systems.
So maybe as a board, when whatever action we take, we could agree that this would be a 30-day process.
Yeah.
For now.
Right. With
And that we should establish an avenue of communication between Elaine and our staff. So that, because as we've got a new board and we're figuring out how not to overwhelm our staff with communication from a lot of people, we should see what they need and how we could support that.
Of course, that's what I was thinking, was like, where you would fill in, if it's okay with our treasurer, because I mean, we don't wanna step on toes. So that's what I'm trying to.
So, and then what I summarized on the back are the actions which would apply to a special meeting, but what I think would facilitate getting this cleaned up. And I think basically you're still like for 30 days, let's just see where it's at. Every one of those things, we'll try to figure out those payroll taxes, figure out why are these things outstanding from 21, get rid of them from 20. I mean, they're done, they're still there, you never got that money, you can't act as though you're going to get it. So the idea being that the board do the action items over on the left side, and then what we would be doing, the three of us, is accomplishing some of this. Some of this we cannot do. The board has got to get people signing on the bank account. They've got to get the new account set up. That should have been done in December.
And I can't do that without the minutes.
But it has to be done now.
I know, so yeah, there's a stall because those minutes need to be done.
Well,
Signed
and you
approved.
have, Lisa at First Southwest said, all I need are minutes, just give me a page of the minutes and we can open all the
Okay.
accounts and do all
So
that.
maybe with Aria, we could have her.
She's been working on it.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
And I really think you need to consider making minutes public right away.
I agree.
You don't necessarily approve them till the next meeting and finalize them, but the public doesn't know what's happened. in a meeting.
Right.
And if
So
you wait, if those minutes aren't available till after the next meeting, it's too late to.
how do we do that with, I mean, they should be,
They have to be approved, though, I would think,
They
first
can
before,
be subject to approval.
or have them totally like, non-approved or
Yeah.
totally,
But
You know,
it's very important to
yeah.
know what's happening in
so
town.
there's
Just put stamp draft on them like they've been doing before.
Pardon?
If you go on the town's website and you go to old ones, you've got the minutes and in watermark.
Says
you
draft.
can read, it says draft. So they're not approved minutes, but it's a draft
I like that.
as soon as it comes out.
So one other option would be, we've talked about trying to shorten our main meetings and then have maybe another meeting that. So I mean, we could theoretically have one in between where we would approve minutes so that they're not approved like monthly, they're approved every 2 weeks. Something like that, so we can discuss that, yes,
Two,
yeah.
Elaine, so you have desktop QuickBooks stuff, you have QuickBooks desktop, you have it up the store. I mean, could we get approval to offer some of those files onto your,
I don't know how you get them back. Like if I set up a company, I don't know how that company goes to you. I think it has to be set up on.
If we go online, she can access them.
Yeah, but that's, okay, good point, but it's gonna take a while to get
Online.
get everything resolved. I think that we need to resolve before we do that transition, and that was my second thing that I wanted to say. So I have here a letter from Dana Ryder, so I asked her for a proposal, and, I mean, I can just, maybe it would be better just to make copies for all of you, so that you can read, what she has here as.
So, okay, so that would be something that we would add to this agenda if we want to, or do we wanna put it on the next agenda for another special meeting?
Dana was gonna help us with moving our QuickBooks over, is that correct?
Correct, to get it onto QuickBooks Online, and also
So we-
add,
yeah.
offer some training to me, which would be valuable, to do what I need to do, to know, there's a lot to the system.
No.
And even though I have good experience with QuickBooks Online, opposed to desktop. It would be very valuable.
So here's our agenda for the special meeting, we can adjust this. Because everybody has this.
Yeah, I have it.
We can adjust it because we do have on our finance committee report
We need to
updates.
short things up for.
Okay.
You have one?
No, I don't.
Access. Do you like one, Warren?
Should I read Dana's thing?
Yes, and I can make a copy of this. I also, I printed out the current desktop piece just for comparison.
So I would agree, so there was 2 things that we said that we were gonna do last meeting, I don't know where this data that, this trustee is at, but you said you were gonna do a YouTube thing and get that posted.
Yeah, so Ariel wants to set that up together, in regard to your minutes thing, Ariel and I are gonna set up a YouTube account so that at least the recordings get posted to the public, like, say immediately after each meeting. So, that's one thing we're working on. Ariel wants to create the account and then give me access to it, and I was out of town and know she's got her thing going on, but I'm thinking she was asking me to come and maybe look at that apartment to get cleaned up on Saturday, so I was hoping then.
We had just agreed with the last meeting that we were gonna try to get those out.
Yeah.
Like, I think within a week, right?
Yeah.
Say 7 days is what we.
Something like that, yeah.
So that's kind of important because
Yeah,
that's,
it's really like, we need to cut down that tree,
yeah.
and I don't have anything, so Ben, it's like, but I don't have anything from the town that says we can cut it down, and
Right.
we're like a stalemate for 4 months.
I remember that,
I
yeah.
mean, we just,
So,
and there are no minutes that I can find. Dennis told me after the meeting that it was okay to cut down the tree, the well was a problem. But we don't have anything that I have that I can give the guy to cut down the tree in 4 months.
so here's what I would say is we have to start directing a clerk, to prioritize minutes the next day after the meeting, and that's her #1 job. that she doesn't, like, I know we're looking for an assistant and her phones and stuff, but when when we're done with our meeting, the first thing she does when she comes in here the next day after the meeting is start minutes.
Maybe we should, propose to close the office to the day after the meetings.
Yeah,
We could do that, for now.
to the public,
Sure.
yeah.
When Ariel does minutes, does she put our recording on and listen to what we're all saying
Yeah.
and type it all out? Because like,
The county.
She does
There's-
both.
Super cool, man. They have
there's like
a
an AI
checklist.
system, I mean, I don't wanna freak anybody else, I don't wanna freak anybody out, but there are AI programs that we could put on that would scribe what we say while we say it, and then she, instead of having to sit there and type it and probably pause and play, it would all be written for her and she could just listen and make edits.
Well, ideally, when we're making motions, she's taking notes
Yeah.
and she has to record it. So,
The county has a form that Amber
We have one
uses. And I don't know what it looks like, but I'm assuming it's like multiple sections, multiple entries. And you just fill in, this was the motion, this was the vote. So you don't have 8 pages of notes, you have itemized motions and votes, and that's all really needs to be in the
It cannot
minutes.
possibly be worth it to have someone sit here all day long and then sit and listen to transcripts. All
Yeah.
you need are take notes and.
Not even, or a
Actually,
form.
you do it while you're on.
That was happened.
I totally agree.
I'm
Print it
at
out,
meeting,
you're
yeah.
done. It,
I agree.
and if there's a problem with it and somebody's notes are different, then you're approving them, you can
The
amend it.
problem that she's gotten into, and I told her that we have to start on the time, like, we gotta like get caught up and then work our way back, not work our way back and then try to move forward, because she was doing that, I don't understand, she was trying to get minutes out from meetings and, that we missed, where we should have the meeting minutes from the last meeting out, then she could do the last meeting before that and work her way backwards, and it's really important because, I mean, this is getting out of hand.
And you really need them, like you can't open the bank accounts, you can't
I know.
change signatories without them, you can't, I mean, and you can't go months and months with
Yeah.
all your
So-
prior employees signing on.
So
the
like,
accounts.
then
Yes.
it's something like that, and that's pre-printed.
Motion made, second, yeah.
And then
You have
at
it.
the county, Amber will be like, it's not a I, it's a, she'll say Armando, Elaine, Dana, and then they check it off.
Gotcha,
And
Makes
it's there, so there's no note taking.
okay. I mean, yes, there was a family emergency, and I totally get that she's, dealing with stuff now, but we should have those last minutes from our last regular meeting.
Yeah.
Already in hand. And they should. be-
I like the suggestion
So do you wanna,
to just have that sheet and then if it just has motions and
Made by,
And then
seconded
who
by,
said it?
who voted what.
could even be a half sheet, like you just sit,
yeah,
Well, this would be pre-printed on
Right.
20 pages.
yeah, and you just
So-
pull one out when you're having.
Yeah,
yeah, and then those could be,
Yeah.
pretty quickly disseminated.
Okay.
I like that.
So when we get into our we're gonna take a break, when we get into our regular meeting. Our special meeting, sorry, let's start doing some action items, can you be here, what time do you have to leave?
I have to leave at 11:24.
Or maybe two, or maybe four.
How many seconds in there? So do you think we could move through stuff in 25 minutes?
I don't see
Start
why
right at
not.
11?
I think we.
Everything's
yeah, we
pretty
could
cut and
do
dry.
something. Do we wanna put this, shall we call it?
But let's start at
Yeah.
11,
Yes, please.
so let's do Zoom
Right at 11.
technicalities before.
Yeah, we'll do that right in the break, thank you guys
Yeah,
so
thanks.
much.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, hopefully
Yeah,
that
thank you.
kind of what you're
Really
looking
helpful.
for.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yes, thank you.
And then, yeah, so we're gonna approve.
Good luck.
We need more of that.
No, we're gonna do some more digging and that will help, and then
You're coming on Thursdays,
yeah, Thursdays, cause I work generally Monday through Wednesday at the county, and then I don't like to work.
because
Fridays.
I'll be sure. and-
If you wanna try,
Next Thursday, I'll be sure.
yeah,
If you have to, I'll arrange with Kim.
yeah, cause they said like 20 more, I said, well, 20 more hours,
Hey, Dennis.
but now summer starts coming.
That's
right?
all.
It's hard. Okay.
June
See what we can get done.
And we'll see if we can get you on the next time.
You can.
Yes.
You can. You can. Well, maybe I'll.
And, I'm gonna try and have like. On the side. Okay.
Okay.